But tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we have with us Mr. Albert Burgess. Please give him a warm welcome.
Thank you very much. I have to tell you, I come with a health warning because everybody I met in my life called Albert is completely and utterly stark raving mad. And I will give you an example of that. I was walking up the Pentonville Road one night with my colleague Tony. Tony is a born traffic policeman. That means he's only got half a brain really, but he's quite a good friend of mine. And we were walking up the Pentonville Road and we saw these two cars full up with Asians which were leapfrogging up the road. So we thought we'd find out what they were up to, and I stopped my car and he stopped his. And I'm not a traffic policeman, so I very soon got fed up with the no English, only Hindi, no English, only Hindi. And I wanted to go back. It was 2:30 in the morning and I was dying for a cup of tea. But Tony, being a born traffic policeman, he's going to report somebody for something. So I thought I'll give him a heavy hint. And I walked across the road, and as I was walking across the road, I saw this man walking down the road towards me, and he had a wallet in his hand, and he had on the wallet a cigarette packet. Now, I don't smoke, so we'll have to do that. And he was walking down the road like this, 2:30 in the morning. And I went up to him and I said to him, "Good morning, sir." And he said, "Good morning, officer." I said, "Are you all right, old son?" He said, "I don't mind telling you I'm not." And I said to him, "What's the problem?" He said, "I haven't had any sleep for 3 days." And I said, "Really? Why is that?" He said, "It's the entity, it's trying to kill me." I said, "What entity is that?" He said, "It's the entity I've managed to trap in the cigarette packet. But if I go to sleep, I'll let go of it and he'll get out and he'll kill me." So I immediately realised that I had a place of safety arrest, because you can't leave him going wandering around with no sleep forever. And so I said to him, "Well, how would you like to come for a nice ride in one of our police cars? And we can take you in the police station and we can throw the cigarette packet in one of our cells, because all of our cells are entity proof." And he said to me, "Do you think that would work?" I said, "Absolutely certain it will work." So I whistled up the van, and the sergeant said, "What you got, Albert?" So I told him. So he put us in the van and we taken us down the police station. When we got there, I walked into the custody area with this man, and the sergeant behind the desk, the custody sergeant, said, "What you got, Albert?" And the other sergeant said, "You don't want to know. I'll deal with it." And we sat down, and the sergeant walked over to one of these pedal bins, flicked the lid, pulled out a green first aid box which was empty, and he said to the guy, "Now this is an entity-proof box. That is an entity-proof bin. If Albert stands by the bin, you put your hand in here. When I say now, let go of the cigarette pack and pull your hand out quick." So like, "Do you understand?" "Yeah, I understand." So right, now, down comes the lid on the box. He throws it to me. I threw it in the bin, slammed the lid of the bin shut, and then the sergeant and I looked at one another. We went, "Phew, that was close." Now I've got to put pen to paper. And I said to the guy, "What's your name, old son?" And he said, "Albert." And after that, I was known as Entity Albert throughout the rest of my time in the police station. But, I mean, basically, everybody I've ever met, as I say, called Albert, has been stark raving mad. Now, I was a special constable. Now, a special constable has all the powers and obligations and authority of a proper policeman or a regular policeman who gets paid, but you don't get paid. You do the same training, and a friend of mine who's a regular officer at Hendon Training School told me that they get better results out of special constables in the exams than they do out of a regular intake, because the special constables do it because they're interested in doing it, not just because it's a job. But the police are there to uphold the law. But there are different kinds of law. There is the common law of England. There is constitutional law, which is supreme law and overrides everything else. And then there is statute law passed by Parliament. And in order to understand what this is all about, you have to understand our constitution and how it developed. Alfred the Great, when he became king of the English, put all of the laws, the best laws and customs from all of the various old kingdoms into one book of law called the Dome. He showed it to his Witan, which was his parliament, and he asked them if it was good law. And they agreed it was, and it was published as the King's Law and was the first ever book of constitutional law. And it was really quite enlightened, because in it they said that if you are a widow, say you were married to a lord and you were a widow because somebody, you know, he died one way or another, normally your estate would revert back to the crown who would reallocate it. And you'd be out and you'd have to find somebody to you. But what normally would happen is the king would find, if you were 25 years old, young nubile widow, the king would find some 60-year-old git who he wanted on his side, and he'd marry you off to him. And Alfred actually put in his book of laws that a widow should not be forced to marry against her wishes. He was nice to you girls, wasn't he? And also, you would keep the estate, and the estate would be run by you, and if you couldn't run it, then they'd appoint somebody to run it for you, but that person would not be answerable to the king, he'd be answerable to you. If you weren't happy, you contacted the king, and the king came and kicked him in the nuts or something, right? So basically, it was very enlightened law. Over the years, this has been repeated. It was repeated in the Charter of Liberties of Henry I in 1190, Magna Carta in 1215, 1628 Petition of Right, and the 1689 Bill of Rights. And basically it's simply a repeat of the English law, and it's constitutional law, and it can't be repealed, and it is actually supreme law. Police officers, unfortunately, are not trained in constitutional law. The only common law they are trained in is breach of the peace. But when you're a police officer and they say to you, this is the law of breach of the peace, but you can't use it, because you are there, your primary role is to prevent breaches of the peace. So if you arrest somebody for a breach of the peace, you've actually failed to prevent a breach of the peace, and that's neglect of duty. So if you arrest him for a breach of the peace, you yourself are in trouble. Use the Public Order Act instead. And then, of course, they enforce statute law. And the statute law is stuff like the Road Traffic Act and things like that. Now, a statute law cannot be used to repeal a constitutional law. So when the Bill of Rights says that you cannot suffer any fine or forfeiture unless you have been found guilty of an offence in a court of law, and Tony Blair's government come along and say, if you don't pay the road tax on your car, we will seize it and crush it, the statute is overridden and voided by the constitutional law. However, government are ignoring our constitutional law. That's no reason why police officers should. We have here this thing for the Inquiring Minds. And on it, you have a policeman in the old style uniform with his shirt sleeves out. It's a nice sunny day, wandering around, being nice to people and smiling at everybody he meets, patting all the dogs, kissing all the children, and doing the things that the police normally would be known for doing. On the other side, you have a policeman with a fluorescent jacket on, so he's never going to catch anybody committing crime because he's lit up like a Christmas tree, so you're never going to see him. He's never going to get close enough to see you committing crime because you can see him 3 miles away. And he's got CS gas and a big truncheon and everything else on him, which makes him really difficult. And basically, you give him a bulletproof vest as well, so what you've got is a paramilitary. And that's what you see on your streets today. Now over here, it says, I have to put my glasses on for this, because frankly I'm going blind. Corporate employee, revenue collector, and to enforce